So I meant to tap this. Yeah, that's a good way to check if that mic is actually on and not recording through there. That's what all the pros do, isn't it? Okay. Who starts this one? I start this one? I should really write this down because I fuck it up every time. All right. Welcome to...
Buyer's Remorse.
Welcome to Buyer's Remorse. I'm Darren.
And I'm Justin.
And in this show, we look through each other's library for games that we haven't played, and we get each other to play those games. So I picked a classic.
See, what the listeners don't know is that every time it's your turn to do the introduction, you're like, I don't know how to say this. I don't remember how to say this. And then you kind of, the look you have is always like you're clearly thinking about what to say next because you don't remember.
I should write it down. But yeah, I picked a classic from the Oceans bundle.
Yes, The Great Escape.
I played this on Spectrum way back in the 1980s. It was a really hard game back then. It wasn't my typical game that I would play, but I thought that someone else should revisit it just to, get all the appreciation for it that I have.
No, because it is clearly a product of its day. And I will tell you, this could be possibly the shortest episode we ever do, because nothing happened. I mean, that's pretty much what I'm going to say. Nothing happened. Let's talk about The Great Escape. First off, it is loosely based on the movie. Mm-hmm. Even as you start up the game, it has some beautiful chiptune themes from the movie. It will say on the Steam page that it was released... Let's see, I wrote it down here somewhere. It says something like it was released April of 2018, but no. I don't think anybody's going to be fooled by that one. It was originally released in 1987. It says so once you start up the game. It is a whopping, you better clear some memory. It is a whopping 2 megabytes. Steam's estimated time to download was 0 seconds.
Wow.
So by the time I installed and clicked on Manage Downloads, it was already ready to play. I've not had that kind of experience in a very long time. I mean...
If only all our games could be like that.
There have been other ones. I mean, I know that the first one that I did, the 6V game, like that's very small, but this, I was just laughing at how small this was. I think ringtones take up more memory than this entire game.
If you put a dot in a Word document, it would be more than that.
I did, because you recommended ahead of time. You said you're going to want to look up the controls somehow. I did find a sort of walkthrough, which I tried not to use the walkthrough part, but I did try to at least see what the buttons would do or what buttons I needed to use. Now, originally in what he had typed up, it seems like originally you could have attached a joystick and used a joystick instead. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to have controller compatibility, which is a real shame because I think it would have made the game much, much easier. Because there's essentially directions in this game that you use the number keypad for. 5 does nothing, obviously. Maybe it makes you stand still. I don't know. But anyway, the numbers all can take you in different directions. But this is another game where they've chosen a kind of isometric layout, which I don't like. It looks better visually, but from the game mechanics standpoint, is really, really awkward. And now you don't just have 4 directions to walk in, but 8. And so up is actually kind of up and to the left. And the diagonal is kind of straight up, but that doesn't really work if the door is at an angle. It's really awkward. Like, this whole game feels really, really awkward. But as you start up the game, like, it'll basically give you those commands. And space is fire, and escape starts a new game. And that's basically all you have to control. But as you've told me, and as I had to find out through the walkthrough, if you find an item, you have to hit fire up. And to use it, it's like fire down.
Fire left.
Yeah. Though the fact that they chose fire is weird because do you ever get a gun in this game?
I think it's just the terminology for the old joysticks. Like, you had one button and that was the fire button.
Okay. Because I was like, I don't think we're going to get a gun.
For the record, you do not get to fire a gun in this game.
So it seemed odd terminology. But it didn't really matter because I found nothing in this game. This hour was like just ridiculous. Okay, so I think, honestly, if we're going to make a real episode about this, we're going to have to talk a little bit about your experience of it in the past. But let me give you my experience of my hour. So Essentially, as you told me before I played, the character will just kind of do his thing, go through his daily routine. So if you don't do anything, your character just walks around and does everything it's supposed to. So in a typical day, there's wake up, you have roll call, then you go to breakfast, then there's exercise time, then there's another roll call, then it's time for bed, which I'm like, well, what happened to lunch and dinner? You don't get those.
No.
And even at breakfast, I was really annoyed because they don't show food coming in. So how do these guys survive? Like, I don't think they're ever eating.
What do you expect for 2 megabytes?
I expect more. I expect more than this. Because I know other games at this time that were clearer with what they were doing than what this game is. Yeah, so you basically then, you just go to bed, and then you just lay in bed. The colors go from yellow to green, and then when it's back to yellow, it's a new day. I know this because I tried to mess around on the first day and was immediately thrown into solitary, in which you just basically have to wait for the next day to start. Luckily not as long as an entire day, but it feels interminably long.
See, they've captured that aspect of being in solitude. That's very realistic, isn't it?
Well, I don't know about that, but it's definitely very punishing to throw you in there. And it's so easy to be caught because, let me tell you, I don't know what was going on at the time, but Ocean apparently could only afford 3 colors. It was yellow, it was green, and it was red. And that was it.
And black. Is there not a black in there?
I think that's just kind
black,
of...
Is black a colour, even?
I don't think it was black. I think what you're thinking of as black is just empty space that would have been filled up by, like, the green screen at the time.
Yeah.
This becomes a real problem in the fact that it's really hard for me to identify who is good guys and who are bad guys because they made them all yellow. All they would have had to do was make them green or make them red. They've got the colors. I know they do. You can sort of see it when they turn around. They have a gun, but otherwise it's really, really hard to tell who's on your side and who's not. So I got caught all the time. In the hour, I got caught 6 times and had to wait through. I really wasn't sure what to do. I was kind of wandering around. I found locked doors. I just didn't find any objects. I did at one point find a tunnel where I crawled through from the exercise yard, but it seemed to have a dead end and I couldn't really find anywhere else to go. So pretty much that's all I did for the hour. Initially, I waited for a full day. After the first solitary, I waited the second day to see what a full day actually looked like. Primarily to get an idea of what was going on and what times might be good to break away from the group to try and do something and not end up back in solitary again. And a day feels really, really long when you do nothing. It's really long. I do also want to talk a little bit about the look of the game because it's a bit of a nightmare, the way this game looks. On the whole left side of the screen is a flagpole, huge marker to tell you where your morale is, which I didn't even realize that's what it was for a long time. So I have all sorts of theories written down about like, oh, when I get caught, my flag goes down, or if I'm doing nothing, the flag goes down. I didn't know what was going on. Sometimes the flag is red. That's apparently when you're doing naughty things.
Yeah, that's the alarm, yeah.
Where I was expecting the naughty things to go off with the alarm, but no, the alarm just kind of tells you to wake up and get to roll call or you have something you're supposed to do. There's also a whole row of symbols with numbers at the bottom, which are not explained and I have no clue what they mean. And all this takes up a whole lot of screen space because imagine this is not on the big screens we have of today, but an even smaller and square screen of the old days. So in the top right corner is your game in a box surrounded by more pictures unnecessarily that are barbed wire and I guess what are meant to look like searchlights, but they kind of look like cartoon hams with the kind of the bones still in. Yeah. So they've shrunk the amount of actual game space down too far, I think. It definitely speaks of its day of 1987 and them not quite knowing what they should be doing here. So that's it. You did tell me at one point, right towards the end, you sent a message asking how it was going. And I was like, I haven't found anything. And you told me to move the stove in the original bedroom. And there's a tunnel, which is great, but that tunnel seemed to go nowhere. So I ended up back in the bedroom and I went, well, that's it's more exciting than nothing, but it's not really. I had to start the game over at about 30 minutes because my morale hit zero.
That's game over, yeah.
Yeah, it's basically game. But you don't know it's game over. You just suddenly have no control. So I thought the game was broken. I didn't know what was going on. It wasn't until I looked at the walkthrough later that I found out, oh, yeah, morale 0 equals, there's no way to get it back. So you're basically just a zombie at that point, walking around doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the game for me. But that is not your experience. So let me ask you about your experience back when you were playing this. Obviously, a younger man in those days.
Yeah, definitely.
And like you said, it was a time where, especially as a child, I'm assuming, you couldn't just go on Steam and buy, a bunch of games for $1. Like, this is the type of thing where you had one game and you had to wait a long time before you could get another one. So, yes, you would be a bit more dedicated to getting through it when you don't have 500 other games in your library. So,
yeah, exactly.
Can I assume, I kind of want to ask anyway, did you play this alone or is this something you had a friend that you played with?
No, I played this one alone.
See, that's very interesting because for me, as you've known probably when we do puzzle games and stuff, I think that it's more fun for me to play with a friend or to play at the same time as a friend so that if either of us get stuck, we can ask. Now, we're in the modern age where walkthroughs exist, but in those days, they didn't. So you were kind of on your own completely. I think that there's no way I would have kept up with this game. I would have not understood what was going on. I mean, I played for an hour and I found 0 objects. And the Red Cross thing, I knew that they were dropping packages, but I didn't know where they were being dropped.
Under the guard tower.
For me, yeah, this was a bit of a nightmare. So I think, with our other podcast, Filling in the Gaps, I kind of feel like, yeah, this could fit. Any of the games from this era could kind of fit because you basically have to fill in your gaps yourself. You have to figure it out. It's basically a puzzle all of its own. What is this game? Yeah. And I remember this. From the era of, say, early Atari, where I had to kind of try and figure it out. And a lot of those games made 0 sense. So,
oh man, yeah.
I mean, I played E.T. for hours trying to put that together, and that's comes up constantly as being one of the worst Atari games of all time. So I get that mentality. It's very tough, I think, in modern times to want to do that. So tell me about this game. Why did you like it so much before?
All right, so I don't remember exactly when I bought it, but I would have been 10, about 10 years old, and I would have been living in a foreign country at that time. And so basically, I would save up pocket money, because you couldn't get games out there. You could get the old magazines that would have, like, cassettes taped to the front.
Cassette. So this is the one, it would work on, like, what looked like audio cassettes, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I had one of those, but yeah, I didn't use it very much.
Okay, so yeah, you'd get a cassette taped to the front. That was about all we could get, like ZX Spectrum or Sinclair magazine. And so basically, I would save my pocket money. Or some other people had Spectrums. Most of my friends were way posher than I was and had Amstrads and Amigas and stuff like that. And I had my little cassette deck Spectrum 48K plus, not rubber keys. And then I later upgraded to a 128K. Ooh. But yeah, so I'd save up my pocket money and I'd go back home and then I would go and buy a bunch of games. And The Great Escape was one of them. And to be honest, a 3D isometric game at that time was quite special. It was like, ooh, it's just like real. I mean, it looked real to me back then.
Oh my goodness. You look at the guy now, his head looks misshapen.
He looks like he's been punched in the face 100 times.
Have you seen Princess Mononoke?
Yeah.
So the little kind of sprites
the forest sprites, yeah.
That's what his head looks like. I kept thinking that because the eyes are kind of not horizontal, they're at different angles.
Yeah.
So that's all I kept thinking was that's what he looks like.
Yeah. But no, I mean, so I'd go back, buy a bunch of games. Also, my cousin had a bunch of games, so you would just set up 2 tape decks and just record, like, pirate all of his entire library, bring it back to where I was living. But that would be it. I'd have, like, maybe 50 games for a year to play. And that does seem like
a lot.
Yeah. But a lot of them were games that you finished in 10 minutes, or a lot of them were games that had no end, like Centipede-type games. But then The Great Escape was one of those games that was like a puzzle game, and it was different, and it was more interesting than the other Spectrum games that were available at the time, or some of them anyway. And yeah, it was genuinely a lot of fun to play, which I know is bizarre. Even when I played it now, it's like, man, I can't believe I stuck with this. But you do, because you've got no other choice, really. But I was saying to a friend the other day, like, back in those days, you'd play a game, you would know it. You played it so much that you would know it inside and out. You'd know every glitch in the game. There was games where if you walked backwards into a wall, you could walk through the wall, for example. You would know everything about a game because
But
you played
that's
it.
again, that's why having a friend playing at the same time would make a huge difference. But if I was playing this on my own, like this time, I was happy to have that hour done. When the alarm went off, I was ecstatic to
So,
get out of
did you not enter a single room then? Did you go into the other kind of...
I went into other barracks. I went into, I don't know what looked like it might have been like a doctor's room or something, but most of the doors were locked.
Yeah, because the first thing you pick up is
I don't know, because I didn't pick it up.
most of the doors are locked, so
Is there a key?
a lockpick.
Ah, okay.
And so basically you go and find the lockpick, and it's not far away from where you start. And once you get the lockpick, that's where the stove in your room comes into play, because every time you get caught, the guards take the stuff off of you and then throw you in solitary, and then you got to start again. So you go back to your room, move the stove aside, go underneath. That tunnel does lead nowhere. You just got to drop stuff in there and then move the stove back, and then you kind of blend in again for the day. And then you go in and get your lockpick, because after breakfast and like you can do some stuff, the bell will be ringing or like the red flag will be there, but just try not to get caught. You know, that's the whole thing. So
Right.
you go around and then you lockpick. All those locked doors lead into other things. And then basically, spoilers, but you do a few things. It doesn't take long. I mean, if you had a walkthrough, you could beat the game in 30 minutes, I think.
I think you pretty much have to, because by the end of my second playthrough, the guards were just following me nonstop. Like, they were just obsessively stalking me. There were 3 of them just on top of me all the time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do anything at that point in the game.
And then I think what happens is I remember you bust into the locker room and you manage to secure some guards' uniforms. And then I think that you exit through the tunnel that you found in the exercise yard. And then you need something like wire cutters or something like that to clip a thing at the end of that tunnel. And that's the end of the game. The Great Escape. And your Great Escape was just hitting that escape button.
Yeah, pretty much. I was so ready to be done with this game. Recommendations. I would recommend this game only to people who had played it before and want that nostalgia factor, because I don't think it works for anyone else. I mean, I saw this bundle and I also jumped on this bundle thinking, oh, The Great Escape, like the movie, love the movie, but this is exactly the type of...
There's no motorbikes in this movie.
Yeah, that's a problem.
There's no motorbikes in this game.
But there's the problem of, I don't know, I want to blame this on being the same problem as every game that's based on an IP, but honestly, that is at least fairly close to what the movie is about. Putting together what you can while not getting caught and escaping. Once you actually know what you're doing, it sounds like it's a pretty fair representation of what the movie was about. Oftentimes, it's just so totally bonkers off the wall that it has nothing to do with the movie. I don't want to blame it that way. I think it's a great concept for a game, but it's a game that is now 30 years old.
It's not aged well.
It is not aged well. In any way, I think that even in its day, it had some flaws, primarily in the fact that if you're like me, you have no idea what's going on in this game. So I would probably only recommend it to people like that. Definitely don't buy it full price. It's like $4 on Steam.
What? Is it?
So find it when it's on sale. It was in a huge bundle for like $1.
Yeah.
So don't buy it full price. Definitely. You can buy... I'm sure that there's probably going to be a bundle that goes on sale at some point. So I would hold off on that. It does play well in the fact that like it initially brings up a kind of DOS box that works without having to install a new DOS box or anything like that. That's been
enter any command at all.
That's been a real problem with me with trying to play old DOS style games in the past, is getting that to work. I've had issues with that, but this does work. It works as well as you could expect it to work. I would have preferred it if you could have a controller.
Yeah, it did seem like a very lazy kind of port. They hadn't updated anything for like modern PCs. Yeah.
I will say that the trailer on Steam is very truthful, because it starts off with you in solitary and you go line up for roll call. That's pretty much what I experienced in this game, was a nonstop going to solitary or just boringly following the day's routine.
There's a really funny comment on the Steam page or on the community forum where they're like, could you not make a proper trailer? Because clearly the guy that you've got playing the game as the demo doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, it could have been me, as far as I'm concerned. Tags? Tags. I would say old, waiting, because that's what I felt like I was doing most of the time, and confusing. For you, it is not I think if we were playing it together and you were giving me hints, that would help out immensely.
More of an adventure game then, yeah.
But on your own, jumping into this game, it doesn't hold your hand and also doesn't tell you enough to actually play the game, I think.
Yeah.
So I would not recommend it, but it is 30 years old. It is what it is.
I mean, the thing that I like about this is not about the game, but about the whole idea is that Ocean were huge back in the day. They were massive on Spectrum, and I'm sure on all other platforms as well. But I like this trend because I want to play more. There are way better games than The Great Escape, don't get me wrong. I bought The Great Escape out of that bundle because it was the only one that I really recognised, and so it was nostalgia for that. Because they did RoboCop, they did, not Outrun, did they do Outrun? They did a whole bunch of driving games, they did Operation Wolf, I think, was them. They did the Rambo games, which is they've just stolen the assets from The Great Escape to make the Rambo game. I'd love to play all those games again. So if this trend continues and Ocean are going to start re-releasing their old stuff, I'm all in.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I am.
Again, but you've said it perfectly. These bundles and games are made for people like me. Yeah, I would not say to you, Justin, you need to pay $4 and buy The Great Escape because it's awesome. No.
I will say that the best thing about this game is that it does, as you said, have an ending, which in that era is very hit or miss, and more often missed that there wasn't a proper ending. It was about that point where games started to really get into this trend. So I appreciate that, because certainly I didn't think there was an ending. But I'm glad that there was. Even if, for me, it just meant hitting escape.
The Great Escape. So, Buyer's Remorse, or?
It was only $1 and I got 6 games? So I'm not sure that I would totally say Remorse, but I will say that hour, I definitely have some remorse over losing that hour to this game at this point.
Remorse.
Thank you for listening. If you like what we do here on Buyer's Remorse, we also have another podcast called Filling in the Gaps, in which we take in-depth looks at puzzle games and puzzling movies. Give it a shot. We also have a Steam group.
Steam group is just Filling in the Gaps Steam page in the community. You can find us there. We do lots of puzzles to solve to win free games. Sometimes we just give them away for free anyway. And you're welcome to join us over there.
If you have any questions for us, suggestions for us, you can reach us. Probably the best way is through email, which is buyersremorsepodcast@gmail.com. No apostrophe in there, just Buyer's Remorse Podcast. Thanks for listening.